Hi everyone. Thanks for your appreciation on my last webinar on RACM. And a few people have requested and suggested that we should have one separate webinar on SOP. So I have tried my level best. So let's start with the new topic, standard operating procedures. So what is SOP? SOP is first point is any document that is a how to false means a document which describes how to, so that is into the category of procedure. And what is SOP? SOP is standard operating procedure. So the procedures which are laid down step by step for the convenience of workers, for the employees, to ensure that they are they'll be able to do their task properly. So these are the documented procedures for their routine tasks and complex tasks. Now SOP, whether SOP can only be in written form, the answer is no. SOP can be in any form. It can be in video form. It can be in audio. See much examples of those pieces. But yes, video form it is there whenever you are preparing training manuals or something like that. So you prefer prepare something which is in audio form. So even if your audience is like factory workers or the workers who cannot read the manuals, so you prefer go with audio. But here today we are going to discuss the documented version of this SOP. Any questions or should I move forward? So why SOP? So I'll take a quick on this because I will spend more time exactly. So why SOP? Because we for the consistency of information in a particular process. So for that we need SOP because SOP is my step procedure for your routine. It allows you to you have consistency, uniformity, so you will obviously get quality output because you are you become more efficient in that particular process. Avoid miscommunication, which is very common when you are working with so many employees and there are level of hierarchies. So this avoid miscommunication, like who said what to whom and what anybody has to do when this has to be done. So all this, when this is documented, so it reduces the chances of miscommunication. Fourth one is supportive tool for management to guide new workers. Yes, obviously when new workers join, so the process is already in place or the operations are already running. So, guiding them and teaching them becomes a bit easy when you have a documented process in place or you have a video or any form of SOP in place. SOP. So I have tried my level best to have one sample SOP with us, and I am open to your suggestions also on this. So I have taken the topic process change itself as an SOP. So this is the SOP of process change process. So I think it's clear to everybody. So it's an SOP, like it talks about whenever there is any process change in the organization, how that process change will be taken care of, what will be the process for that process change. So I have taken that example because we are discussing that. So first page will be company logo, company name, the name of the process, document number, and creation date. So this creation date won't change. This would be the original creation date. The versions in the documentation, the log of those versions, that will be talk about later. That has been captured in appendix of this document. So first is purpose. So purpose has to be clear. It should be precise. reasoning why we are creating this SOP is very important, and it has to be documented. So in the purpose, you have to document why it is important and how it can help, like what we want to achieve from this process. So in this particular example, this document describes the approach for handling changes within the organization, roles and responsibilities of all participants in the process. So ये document इसलिए बनाया गया है. Now what the purpose of this document? The purpose of this document is to streamline and smoothen the change management process for timely implementation of any process changes. So this is the purpose, so that we can have a proper process change. Second is scope. Scope is to whom this process document will apply, when this will apply, on what areas, activity this is going to apply. So I have taken an example. So in this example, I have mentioned the manual is applicable to any kind of addition, deletion, or modification in processes across organization, except changes related to any product and associated processes. I have taken that except because for the example purpose only. So you can have exceptions. So that should be properly defining your scope itself. That these process manual will not be applicable to this area or this activity, or that activity is because that activity is separately dealt through another manual. So the audience people will be aware of know what the scope of this document is. Even as an internal auditor, the auditor will also be aware of that, when to refer this document, whether we should continue reading this document or abbreviations, phrases. So all abbreviations, phrases, or the definitions which you want to highlight, if you want to explain. Okay. Now, the main portion of this procedure. Procedure is like defining the whole process step by step. So there are few pointers. These 4 pointers I have write down when we say what should be in the procedure. These 4 pointers could help us to define a good procedure. First is avoid paragraph writing. When you are writing procedure or process, please avoid paragraphs. Try to be in simple steps or phases, like I did. In this case, I did in phases, and in phases also a stepwise or pointer-wise process, because it helps the reader to jump into or to read which is relevant to them. And paragraph writing is something which is it takes more time for the readers also. Avoid jargons, use simple words. This is very important when you are preparing document. First of all, you have to make sure what your audience is, and please, even if your audience is the corporate staff or sitting in the office, not the factory employees, still avoid jargons. Use simple wordings and clear.
पूछ नहीं यार, इनको 2 काम था आपसे, 2 एक तो मेरे को ना ऑफिस का ना लेटेस्ट प्रोजेक्ट का फ्लैश का डाउनलोड करवाना था.
Guys, can you please mute yourself? Okay.
So, mute somebody, unmute everybody. You can.
Okay, I Okay. Third point is defining input, processing, and output. So whenever you are defining any process, please bifurcate the process in 3 parts: input, processing, and output. This would be helpful for you and for the audience, targeted audience also. Fourth is avoid adding too much flowcharts, clippings, and screenshot. Yes, flowchart is good to have in SOPs, but too much flowchart sometimes create chaos. So try to be justified with the flowcharts. Keep it simple, not a bigger flowchart or big one, which is not readable sometimes. So avoid using those kind of flowcharts, and clippings and screenshots if you are maintaining preparing some SOPs for suppose for SAP implementation or for booking general entry. So you have to take screenshots of SAP if it is there. So try to be limited with those screenshots, because then that Word document is so cumbersome that it's sometimes very difficult to read that document, and even those screenshots. So make sure that the screenshots are visible, that flowcharts are visible at least to the audience. I have seen so many SOPs, and in few of them the flow chart is so big, and it's so wordings are so I mean it's so small that you can't read the flow chart. You have to take print out and then you have to read it, or you have to do modifications with the flow chart. You have to zoom in, zoom out, and all these things you have to do with that. So avoid using flow charts, and even if you are using, please be clear and make it small. So in the given example, how I have taken the procedure, obviously I have not write down the whole process and procedure because it's imaginary for me to create this process manual. So whatever I have tried to capture this input, processing, and output. So in the here we are discussing process change process. So in the process change, first is initiation. So whenever any process change request comes, how it will flow. So the phase one would be initiation. So requester can request the team that we want to change this in the process. So how and what all has to be done by that requester. So first he has to request the approving authority. You have to define the approving authority along with justification. Now here, if you have any format, so that format will become part of your appendix or templates. We'll discuss later on. Then these all pointers will be covered in the initiation, like existing process change here. So how that person would came up, what are the justification for that process change, what all cost is involved, what all we want to achieve with that process change. So these can be done. Then you have to define the approval process in this, like the if you have a approval forum, so you have to define the terms of reference of those approval forums. Now what is terms of reference? Like suppose you have an approval forum of suppose 4 people, and you want that approval forum should approve all the process changes. So you make a terms of reference for that approval forum, that okay, the forum will act like this. So that is the terms of reference, like when they will meet, what all decisions, how the decisions will be taken care of, what all kind of voting is required. So all these things should be referred in terms of reference. So terms of reference will become part of that document. In this given example, I'm saying. Then in case there is any conflict, so you have to define the next level authority to approach. So this is the input. The processing is how the decisions was taken, the meetings has happened, that was the processing. Output would be approved, not approved, sent back on or on hold. So approved, agar approving authority ne usse approve kar diya, so it will go to next stage, otherwise it will be back. Not approved, so no further processing. Send back, maybe it requires some changes, so approval forum has sent it back, or on hold, so kept it on hold for some time. So when it is approved, it will go to next stage, that is piloting. So now piloting, if that process requires piloting, so it will go that stage, otherwise it will get skipped and it will move to BAU. So this piloting decision will be taken care by that decision forum itself. So that has been in their decision chart itself. So you can have that decision chart also, that whether this process required piloting or not. If yes, what all criteria need to be defined for that piloting, or what all parameters is required. Then when any process or project goes into piloting, so you need to take care of all these things, defining the success criteria and timeline. This you have to define in the process document. pilot review mechanism, how those pilots will be reviewed, process of extension of pilots in case pilots needs to be extended, like decision forum wants that this process should go for pilot for another 2 or 3 months. So how that will go, what why it is going on, all this needs to be documented. Final go ahead from approval forum. So when you get final go ahead, so that was your output. Now there will be 3 outputs. First, move to BAU. Piloting is going good. It goes well. Approval forum has given go ahead. So now we are moving to BAU. Second is rejected. It was initiation was approved, but somehow when we go for we did piloting, it got rejected. So no further process. Or again, it's on hold. Now, when we said move to BAU, so move to BAU is our phase 3 where we are actually doing actual implementation. So actual implementation could be like you could have small sample population when you are doing piloting. So you are now doing BAU on the whole population. So when you did BAU, so BAU implementation, and after that BAU implementation, you have phase 4 stability check. Means when you did the BAU implementation, so it is implemented or not implemented. Not implemented scenarios would be very less, but if it is not implemented, it will again go back to the first phase. The second phase, piloting. And the reasons and all, everything will be taken care of. If implemented, we need to check the stability check, monitoring mechanism and review mechanism can be captured here. So this is the process. Obviously, this is not the whole process, but this is what I'm trying to tell you, how we can define the process. For any process, like if you have any P2P process or some manufacturing process or anything, so that has some input, processing and output. So it will become very easy for the readers and for the targeted audience to work upon it. Now the next is a few questions are there, or chat is there. Next. So next is verification and validation. This verification and validation is not of the process. This verification and validation is of this process document. So whenever you are defining any process, you have to make sure that whether that particular process is going properly or not. So you should have this clause in any process document. If you are documenting any P2P process or any manufacturing process, or suppose recruitment process, performance management process, so you have this clause in place, the verification and validation. So this clause is verifying and validating the particular process which has been documented in this manual. So in this manual, we have documented process change process. So this verification is related to that. So what it says, it's a control process to this documented process. So it helps us, in RACM when we were doing auditing, it is this paragraph is going to help. What I have taken in this, to ensure timely and appropriate implementation of all changes, the process improvement team to prepare a tracking dashboard. That's very great that we have defined that, okay, a particular process will have to go through these steps. Now suppose in a month there are 10-12 requests, process change requests has come into, few are in process, few are in piloting. So that those 10-12 process changes needs to be tracked. So that process which needs to be tracked is verification and validation. So this is the control process or control mechanism for process change process. So here we can have tracking dashboard wherein all process changes will be covered in that dashboard, and the process improvement manager is going to update it on a regular basis, and even that dashboard has to be presented to that decision forum on a quarterly basis or any interval, and depends on company to company. So this clause is very important. This has to be in every document wherever possible, because this is something which is your control process for that particular process. It helps the auditors as well as the process owners also to have, if they want to change any process, if they want to what should I say, change any process or improve if they want to improve any process. So this is going to help in improvising the particular process. Second, exceptions. This is very important. We usually forgot to mention the approving authority of that particular document in the document itself. So it's very important. We should know whether that particular process which we are talking about, who is the approving authority of that process. And it's very good. It's a suggestion. It's very important that that particular approving authority name should be documented in that particular document itself, so that we will be aware of any exceptions to this process, to whom we have to contact if we don't want to go with that process flow, we need urgent process change, so to whom we have to connect with. So this has to be documented in every SOP. Next is or RASCI, somebody says RASCI matrix. This is very important. We called it as responsibility assignment chart also. So this helps us in defining in each item steps in processes as to who is responsible, who is accountable, approver, who has supported us in this particular process, and to whom we have to consult, and who has been informed. So this is important, and it's my suggestion that this has to be captured in the SOPs wherever possible. Any questions so far?
Can you give an example for that RASA matrix?
It's mentioned. Okay. So this RACI, suppose in the particular example, our first phase was initiation. So initiation of process change. So for initiation of process change, who is responsible? The requester. So I have mentioned requester here. So there are these are the process steps, and these are the name of the personals who are responsible for this particular task. So for initiation of process, the requester is responsible. The process improvement personnel is supporting that requester to make that justification PPT or process change format so that it could go to approval forum. So approval forum is your approving authority. And I have taken an example of IT because most of the cases IT supports you. So in first step, initiation, so IT was consulted. Why consulted? Because we don't know whether we really need support of IT in the initiation stage. So we can say we will mention C, that is consulted. Even if in case you have any process where you are sure that IT would be required, IT support would be required, then this C will be shifted to S, that is support. So for the second stage, that is pilot monitoring, again the requester is responsible. The process improvement personnel is also responsible for that particular process. IT is still consulted, and approval forum is A. So like this, I have tried to make this RASCI. So this gives you a picture like for which step, for each step, who all are responsible, who all are having their their task is who all is responsible to do what. So in a short, small table, it gives you a clear picture. So it is my personal recommendation that this has to be captured in this SOP. Sometimes, yes, it's not possible for capturing this for each and every process, but at least for major processes, because this helps you to avoid miscommunications. Like we generally heard that this is not my job, this has to be done by them, this is not my task, this has to be done by this guy. So this helps you curtailing that thing. Clear? Or need any more clarity on this? Okay, let's move further. So references, as I said, scope in the scope itself, that like this whole process document is not applicable for any product changes. So for reference, you can have that product management process document here. So if anybody wants to refer that, so they can refer that, or any other policy documents under which that SOP has been prepared, that has to be referred in, because SOPs are the procedures. So for each procedure, there has to be some policy document that has to be referred to that procedure. Now, appendix. So there could be any document which you want to add, but this appendix A, document change control, this I want to discuss. This is very important, that this document change log should be maintained to ensure that this has been the changes has whichever changes has been made in this particular document has properly approved by the approving authority. So in this document change control, I have taken version number updated on. That's why I said in the starting of the presentation that when we are writing down that creation date on the first page of the document, that has to be the original date, and that should not be changed. All changes should be done through this table only. So when I have created document on suppose 11th of October, so even if I'm making any changes a year later, that will remain 11 October 2020, and the changes will come in this table. So if I'm making change today, so that will come, the date, updated date come here only. So updated by whom, approved by whom, approving authority ka signature, departments involved, like if it's an interdepartmental or more departments are involved, so you have to mention the each and every department, because then you have to communicate to each and every department. Then remarks, you can have a small description of change over here. Then you can have terms of reference, the process change request form, considering this particular example, approval checklist, and monitoring dashboard. So that could be your appendix or templates kind of things which should be attached with that SOP. So any questions so far? No? Okay, I'm moving further. Okay. So that was SOP. So we have prepared a very good document. That's very good. Now keeping, getting that document approved and put it in the drawer of your table is of no use. So you have to take care of these, which is out of that documentation. And if you want to get that document properly implemented, that SOP properly implemented, you have to consider these things. First is SOP content should be designed keeping in mind the targeted audience. As I said, avoid jargons. Keep in mind the targeted audience, then only define the content. Second is circulation of SOP document to all affected people is very important. You have prepared the, as I said, you have prepared the document, you have got it approved and you have put it in your drawer. So it is of no use. You have to communicate that SOP to the targeted audience. You have to train them. If that particular process requires, you should take a small training sessions on that particular document, and you should invite the audience and train them. It's very important, because sometimes we see in our internal audit that there are very fancy documents which has been prepared, but when we go to the targeted audience, so they were not aware of that any such document exists. So it's very important as an auditor to ensure that that particular document has been properly communicated. The targeted audience is aware of that particular document. Any changes in those documents they are aware of. So I'll take a quick example. In my one of my audits, we were doing audit of one waste management company, and it was a very good learning for me. My senior has taken me for the round in the factory. So he just called one person over there. He was the doing all these I mean, in the stock department. So he was doing stocking. So he called him and he asked, tell me how to operate this fire extinguisher. So he was not aware of like how to, operate this fire extinguisher. He said, didn't you get the training? Aapko training nahi mila hai? So he said, no. So that was the learning for me that yes, you have read the SOP, maybe you have checked the training sessions have been happened, but that has actually been happened. If that has been happened, that guy should be aware of that is how to, use that fire extinguisher in case any fire happened, because that a waste management company, and it is very important to teach or aware the employees over there that is how these things is going to be used in case of emergency. So that is very important. We have to, should be out of that paper task. We need to be practical, and we need to ensure that particular SOP or procedure or process or training manual has been actually implemented, the targeted audience is aware of or not. So it is very important for any SOP to be, in practical implementation. Fourth point is process of regular review of all SOPs and manuals to ensure that the same are updated considering changes in government regulations, technology updations, etc. This is very important. I have taken this point in my first webinar also when we are preparing RCM. So there also I have said whenever we are preparing RCM, we should sit with the process manager or the owners. It gives us a good understanding as to what process is being followed in the company, and then you can compare that with your SOPs and you can check it out whether those SOPs are updated on a regular basis or not. Is there any process for updating those SOPs or not? So that would be your checkpoint. So that is why the company, as a company should have a process of regular review of SOPs. It has to be updated properly, and it has to be it should be storage should be in such a way that it is easy accessible to all the targeted audience. So that could be on a shared drive or some space or intranet space. Some organizations follow that process, so that has to be there so that people can easily refer that particular document whenever they need it. So preparing the particular document, preparing that fancy document is good, but communicating, updating those documents is equally important. Otherwise, there is no use of preparing that 5-pager, 6-pager, or 10-pager fancy document and keeping it in your drawer. So it's very important. Any questions so far? Somebody has asked how the segregation of duties can be ensured in this matrix, responsibility assignment. So here in SOP, this responsibility assignment matrix, we are not ensuring segregation of duties. We are ensuring that there has to be no miscommunication. And yes, there is a segregation of duties when you are defining who is responsible for what. Like we are defining the roles in that RASCI. So particular person is responsible, one person is accountable, one person is supporting, one person is targeting. So obviously we are doing that segregation of duties itself. So these are common flowchart symbols I have kept in this PPT. You can refer that. I have mentioned the source also from where it has been taken up. So whenever you are using any flowchart, so you should be aware of like what symbol has to be used for what purpose, like terminator, decision, data storage, and all these things. So with this, I am done with the presentation. If you have any questions or discussions, we can open for discussion. Thank you.
Hello. Is it audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a wonderful explanation, Shweta. I really appreciate it. I have only one doubt regarding this. Okay, I myself working in internal audit domain for more than 4 months.
Okay.
So basically, what we do is we prepare BPMN for every process of our client. Does the
BPMN.
BPMN is a business process minding map. It's nothing but it's a big flowchart for every process.
Okay.
So like as you already showed, decision documents, everything. So that BPMN comes under each SOP, right? So in the
Yeah,
SOP
yeah.
document.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have seen few SOPs also where there is what the short form you have used. Only those flow charts are there. So my point is, don't use only flow charts. It's good to have flow chart because it gives you less time to grasp more information. But only flow chart would not going to help you. So have some explanation to those flow charts. Have some process steps documented. Then you can refer that flow chart. So it would be more fruitful. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
keeping n numbers of flowcharts in any PPT and you are sharing it with somebody, please, yeah, read kar lo, this is our process procedure for this particular process. So I personally don't prefer that because that is difficult to read because that flowchart is so big that you can't read it. It's not readable. You have to take
Yeah, yeah,
print
yeah.
out or something like that. You have to do that. So avoid using that. Flowchart is good. Keep it small, simple, and short.
So what we do is in our firm, the approach we take is, so for every client, see there are two phases. One, there will be SOP for existing process. For in case if there is no SOP, when we suggest a specified SOP to the client, even though there's SOP or not, we prepare flowchart for every process to our understanding to maintain the overview of the entire audit process.
Right. So that purpose is different. You are
Yeah,
preparing
yeah, yeah.
that thing for your purpose. So that is okay. But as an organization, when we are talking about an organization, how they are, this SOP process has to be in place. So we are talking about that. So in a particular organization, for all major processes, I know for each and every process, this is not possible to document each and every process. It's very difficult actually. But for the major identified processes, the operations, the collections, like I am from NBFC background, so the collections, the sales, the underwriting, these are major, I should say, the departments or processes
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
an NBFC. So their SOPs should be properly documented, and there has to be a process that they should be updated regularly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Somebody is asking, please share the PPT. Yes, definitely. Please be share to the group. Okay. Please do the needful now.
Okay, I will share. I will share.
So this is all. We can end up the session. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Shweta, for giving.
What is the distinction line between policy and SOP? There is a big difference between policy and SOP actually. Somebody has asked Namanpreet for. So policy, SOP is the, policy is the MyBop of SOP. I should say like this. So policy is the base for particular SOP. So like suppose you have a recruitment policy in place and the recruitment procedure would be your SOP for that particular policy. So your policy defines how the organization should work. Or so, and SOP defines the step-by-step process how this procedure or particular process needs to be. People will work on it. Namanpreet, is it clear, or should I give another example?
You can take example of procurement. For example, procurement, there is a policy, right? Like we have to take quotations from at least 3 vendors, or there's a policy like this. For example, we have purchasing this kind of OPEX, capex material. So capex material will be procured from XYZ area only, or from XYZ vendor only, or for from particular section of vendors. So it's stated in policy, but procedure what will tell you, like who will be taking care of, who will be asked for quotations, how quotations will be given to you, how you prepare CBO from these quotations. So procedure is a detailed process where we can take a step by step steps to how to follow the policy. You can say how will be you will be following that policy. So procedure will tell that.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Is it clear now? Is it audible?
Audible.
Okay. So Nagia has already given one example. Route map is SOP and traveling through that route is a policy. So it's a great example, good example actually. So travel policy, we generally see that the company has one travel policy, who all employees are eligible for what kind of travels, how to travel, what precautions have to be taken care of, and all these things. And SOP is whose approval is required, what is the budget, and all these things covered in those SOPs. Please describe agile auditing in simple. Agile auditing, as far as I know, is auditing sub processes. So if you're auditing any particular process, so you divide that process in sub processes and you do audit of that particular sub process. Like starting to end, you pick up one sub process, you did the audit, you complete that audit, then you pick up the second process. So it helps where you have a very large process in place and you have to audit that. So it's better to pick up the areas, divide that areas and complete that particular area, share the observation, then move on to next aspect. So this is agile auditing as far as I know. So anybody from the audience who wants to give more clarity on this agile auditing?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Shweta, for giving such a wonderful presentation. Really appreciate.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to me. Thanks, Alkit, for your time. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Alkit will share the PPT definitely
Sure.
to all the audience who's asking.